Hi, I'm Alan, and this is Prayers to the Dice Gods. And today we're going to be turning this into this. And did you, like me, start doing a Plague Marine army and then somehow acquire 5 Foetid Bloat Drones, all from the Dark Imperium set, so there's no variation between them at all? If you did, this is what we're going to do with it. We're going to make these into something else, because I really wanted to try out a flesh mower, never got around to it, and now we're going to make one. We're going to make it from scratch. We're going to make it using a Winsor & Newton Series 7 paintbrush tube, as well as some wire I have. I actually bought it for another task, but this stuff is fantastic for making your own homemade barbed wire. We're going to use the weapons that are already on board as the arms for this, so we don't need to do any extras, and then we're just going to finish up with a little bit of green stuff, because I don't want it to just look exactly like the other ones, just with the flesh mower on the front. I want it to actually look like it's a different model altogether, to give the army a bit more variation, because with all of those Foetid Bloat Drones I acquired a load of the Plague Marines, and where I can I've changed a couple, but in general they all look almost identical to each other. So first off, we need to take these weapons off of the model. If you own any of these, you'll know you can knock these off at the drop of a hat, and of course I'm sat here trying to remove them nice and carefully, and it's just not happening. What is the chances of a weapon that you can accidentally knock off won't come off the model using a knife? So all I do is I get a hold of it, rip that off the model. We're going to start hacking it up. Now, I want nice clean cut lines on these, so the clippers are no good, and the scalpel here is a little bit too light for the job. If you apply too much pressure, you can bend and snap the blade, and we really don't want that to happen. So we're going to grab a Stanley knife, because there's a nice big blade. It's a nice and heavy knife, and it makes cutting through really easy with a lot less pressure. We're going to take off all of the bits that we don't want here. We're going to see how we're going to put this back together as our flesh mower arm. We're going to chop up our Winsor & Newton paintbrush tube here into a size that we think we want it to be, and then we're going to look at putting on some blades, because let's face it, a flesh mower is pretty useless if it's just a round cylinder. So we're going to cut some tubing. We're going to do this by holding our tube onto a bit of plastic card and just going over it with a pencil, sketching out roughly how we want the spikes to look, and then we're going to trim them out of the plastic card and then look to start gluing them to the tube. Now luckily our poly cement actually works on the tube, but it won't work on the end caps. We're able to use our Tamiya extra thin cement to stick those onto the tube, and we get really nice bond. But just to strengthen that up a bit, we're going to put on some of our Vallejo plastic putty, just to give it a little bit more of a grip to that tube. That gives us the start of the texture that we want to start building up on our flesh mower. Be sure to click on the like button before Papa Nurgle decides that he should make it a fetid like button and you catch some sort of weird plague from it. So taking 3 pieces of our extra thin wire, we're going to twist that together so it starts to look like it's a bit of wrapped up cabling. We're then going to take a single strand of that and we're going to start wrapping it around so that it looks like barbed wire spiking, and we're just going to work our way down about 3/4 of the way. I think should be more than enough to then wrap around our flesh mower. On this occasion I could actually just keep wrapping this until I get it tight enough so that it doesn't move anymore, but because I want the texture there, I'm actually super gluing each one of these in place where I want it. That gives it an extra little bit of texture for when we start to paint it up. So now we're going to begin assembling the flesh mower. We're going to fix the tanks from the end of the weapons as our roller end, and then we're going to assemble the arm from there. Now, one of the things I wanted to do is make sure this looked like it had some sort of movement in it, even if we can't actually move it around. So, you know, it's not going to be just straight in front of it. It's going to be something that can be adjusted as it drives along. So we're going to pin the tank to the arm, and then we're going to pin the arm to the model. My thinking here is, rather than try and fit little bits of plastic in there or try and sculpt it so it looks machinery, I'm thinking this is a demon engine. Why don't we have it so it's a little bit more like there's some gaps there where tentacles are moving down the arms and they're what are actually controlling it. So now we get to gluing everything together and fitting it to the model. We're going to start with our green stuff sculpting, and I'm literally thinking here I want this to look completely different from all of the other ones that I own. So I'm thinking boils on the front, something that looks like it's ready to explode and just dissolve everybody in front of it. So I've gone for 2 really big boils on the front. We're going to do some other sculpting on the base, as well as add a tentacle on, and then we're going to get it painted. If you think you'd do this conversion slightly differently, let me know in the comments below, and we'll have a chat about a different way to do this, because I have another idea for another flesh mower So we went through and painted him. We've gone for our typhus corrosion. We've added loads of that to the flesh mower to add a great bit of extra texture in there. We've added on a load of blood for the blood god because this stuff's pretty cool. It looks quite nice as a blood effect. I've also added this to the base. Now the base, I've got some water effects I really wanted to try out and I've never used it before. So I put in on the base just a bit of a Space Marine helmet. I then added a load of the blood for the blood god around it in a nice thin layer, waited for that to dry, and then I've dropped water texture from Vallejo over the top to make it look like it's a pool that's formed from the amount of things that our flesh mower's gone over. I quite like the way it looks. It's definitely something I may do again in the future with some of the others. I quite like the paint job. The greens are quite close to each other for the flesh and the armour. I wanted it to be like it's kind of merged together, and that's why they're so similar. So it's got our Death Guard armour, and then we've got the demon flesh. It's started to blend, and I have cheated with the flesh. We've done this with contrast paints, because I think contrast paints for doing any kind of flesh are really good. On this one we've used our Plague Bearer flesh and then some Gilliman flesh to go around and pick out it. So it's kind of looking like it's a little bit sore where the boils are coming up or where there's bits of armour that meet the flesh. Overall, I'm quite happy with the way this has turned out. You know, it's not the best model in the world, but as a starter point, it's a really good one. What it really does is it gets me really excited to personalise my models, to make them my own, and it isn't a massive amount of additional work to start doing this kind of thing, making my models my own.